I welcome all of you to my lecture sessions on biochemistry for pharmacy students. In this lecture session, we will discuss in detail about a metabolism of amino acids. So this is the third lecture in this series of proteins and amino acids. So in this session, let us see how actually amino acids are metabolized and useful for the biochemistry of our system. Okay. Their contributions, etc. All of them we'll see. To begin with, I'll just give you an outline. Okay, so that helps you in understanding the entire picture. So this is actually an amino acid. Okay, so in the previous lectures we have seen how actually amino acid and its chemistry help our system. Otherwise, the proteins, how they are manufactured and how they are behaving, and the role of amino acids in deciding the functions of a protein. Okay, so here let's see how actually amino acids can be modified and they can be used for other biochemical pathways. So here in case of amino acids, we basically have three parts. One is the substituent, carboxylic acid group and amino group. Okay, so in the metabolism, basically either amino group is removed. Okay, so if amino group is removed, then you will get alpha keto carboxylic acid. Okay, and then when carboxylic acid is removed, you will get an amine, CH2NH2. Okay, and then when R is modified, you will get some kind of a substituted amino acid, or sometimes this process gives newer amino acids. Just to give you an example, let's say if we have alanine, CHNH2COOH. Okay, so let's say if it is deaminated, first the amino group if it is deaminated, then what you will get? CH3 C double bond O COOH, or we call it as pyruvic acid. So what is the use of pyruvic acid? It is an ingredient for gluconeogenesis. Okay, so this is it. And if CH3 is modified, so one of the example is it will become CH2OH CHNH2COOH. What is this compound? This is nothing but serine. What is serine? Serine is another amino acid. Now it gets decarbonated, thereby what you will get? The ethanol amine unit. The ethanol amine unit. Now the NH2 gets methylated, so that I am giving a simple representation here. What is this compound? This is what we call it as choline. Okay, choline is a very important molecule for the biosynthesis of acetylcholine. Okay, a neurotransmitter. So in this way, an amino acid can get deaminated via oxidative deamination or other processes, or decarbonated, or substitutions can be done. As far as we carry amino group in the metabolites, the compound shall remain bioactive. Okay, it will have some kind of a bioactivity. Either it will have a role to play, like in case of serine, or it will act as a signaling molecule, like in case of choline. But the moment you remove amino group, it will become an ingredient for energy pathways like gluconeogenesis. Okay, so this is the outline of how actually we have to see amino acid metabolism. Okay, friends, now let's go into the actual details of amino acid metabolism. Okay, so in case of amino acid metabolism, because in case of metabolism it is a catabolic reactions, like it's some kind of a degradation reactions, where the basic thing is amino group gets removed. Okay, so 99% of the cases this is what dominates in case of amino acid metabolism. So here how actually the amino group is removed, so that actually decides the way how actually the amino group is removed, it depends on. So what differs here is the procedure, the mechanism via which amino group is removed. And sometimes this kind of deamination reaction is not the first reaction of catabolism for amino acids. As far as 8 amino acids are there, some of the examples I am giving here, like say in case of serine, serine will be converted to threonine and then it will be metabolized. And in case of proline, proline gets oxidative degradation happens over here, so thereby it gives glutamic acid, and then glutamic acid gets degraded further. So in the first step they have to get themselves converted to some other amino acids. And then in case of tryptophan, here ring opening reaction happens here, so that kynurenine is going to be biosynthesized, and then the amino group will be eliminated. Further, arginine gets converted to ornithine, and from ornithine further reaction goes on. Okay, so these steps you will see in case of urea cycle. And methionine gets converted to homoserine, and then homoserine participate further in the biochemical reactions, so thereby deamination happens. And then lysine gets converted to amino adipic acid first, then this amino adipic acid gets converted to the remaining metabolites. Okay friends, so this is the way how the deamination reaction is not the first reaction for many of the amino acids. Then in deamination, it can happen in two ways, as we have seen just now. First one is direct deamination, means in a single step amino group is removed via an enzymatic step. Usually oxygenated deamination reaction is what is going to happen. Okay, so here the first and preliminary and major pathway in this kind of a mechanism is glutamate deamination. Okay, so here glutamic acid gets oxidative deaminated with the help of glutamate dehydrogenase enzyme. So here the coenzyme we have is NAD plus, that converts to NADH, and then alpha ketoglutarate is going to be formed. Okay, so this is one of the major pathways as far as deamination is concerned. The second one is histidine. See, in case of histidine, it follows somewhat a slightly different pathway, where the histidase enzyme eliminates ammonia, okay, via dehydrogenation type of reaction, where a double bond is formed. It is almost like an elimination type of reaction, whereas here it is addition elimination type of reaction. Okay, so here a double bond is formed, here a double bond OE is formed. Okay, so these are the two major reactions in the direct deamination type of biochemical reactions. We have a third and a rather limited reaction that are going to happen in peroxisomes or degradation kind of setups that we have in case of macrophage. Okay, in extreme condition, when there is a viral infection or otherwise bacterial infection is there, the pathogenic material is engulfed by these macrophages, and then they will be swallowed, and then they have to get themselves digested. Okay, so that is a harsh environment where all types of amino acids and the degraded products are to be destroyed. So in that kind of a situation, amino acids are destroyed, deaminated by using a mechanism closely related to the first one, but here L-amino acid oxidase enzyme will be there that takes the help of FAD. Okay, FAD, you can remember one enzyme, succinate dehydrogenase type of enzyme. Okay, so where dehydrogenation happen and then FAD gets converted to FADH2, but this FADH2 is the input for some other reaction. The FAD will be regenerated by reacting with oxygen, so that the reduction potential is transferred, is used for biosynthesis of H2O2, peroxide radical. Peroxide is produced. The peroxides will be neutralized with the help of a catalase enzyme. So thereby water and half O2 is coming. So here peroxide molecule is formed. So this is an example of oxidative stress condition being generated in the system. Oxidative stress is generated only when there is so much of stress in the system in the form of an infection or a pathogenic material in blood. Okay. So here this is a very harsh kind of environment where all amino acids can be destroyed. But in these two we have only histidine and glutamic acid which may undergo this type of degradation. Okay. So I hope you understood the concept of direct deamination of amino acids. Indirect deamination of glutamate. In indirect deamination of glutamate, it happens in a stepwise manner. There are many mechanisms are there. One of the major mechanism in indirect deamination reaction is purine nucleotide cycle. Okay. So here in purine nucleotide cycle, what happens is the amino group that we have on glutamate will be transferred to aspartate. Okay, it gets deaminated to give alpha ketoglutarate. At the same time, this is coupled with a biochemical pathway where the amino group from glutamate is abstracted by oxaloacetate so that it forms aspartate. Okay, glutamate is converted to alpha ketoglutarate by removing one amino group from here, and then oxaloacetate is getting converted to aspartate. So aspartate amino transferase enzyme is the enzyme which helps achieve this reaction. Then aspartate transfers one amino group onto inosine monophosphate to give adenosine monophosphate, so that aspartate is reverting back to oxaloacetate. So now this cycle is complete. The amino group that we have abstracted from glutamate is now in aspartate, and now the aspartate has shifted that one, so that now we have adenosine monophosphate. Now this AMP, the amino group from AMP is eliminated with the help of adenylate deaminase enzyme. Okay. So here what exactly is happening? Amino group from here is shifting onto second carrier, is shifting onto third carrier, and now at the end it is eliminated as ammonia. Okay. So this type of mechanism is very much useful for transporting ammonia from tissue to tissue. The detailed mechanism you will see in the coming slides, but I will give you an outline. Okay, let's say in your hand you have ammonia being synthesized. Okay, now from here ammonia cannot go and reach your liver, where actually urea cycle happens, or otherwise ultimate elimination of ammonia happens, because ammonia may diffuse from place to place. So that's the reason why it will be converted to, it will be packaged in the form of glutamate or glutamine. Okay, so then it will reach liver, so thereby it is going to be eliminated. Ammonia is going to be eliminated in a stepwise manner like this. This is one of the mechanism. We do have other mechanisms, very efficient mechanisms, like transaminase reactions are there. Okay, I hope you understood the logic behind this reaction. Most of the nitrogen is eliminated from our body through transamination type of reactions only. Okay, so now let's see the simple mechanism over here. This is what we call it as ping pong mechanism. The reason is, as I just mentioned in the last slide, the glutamic acid that we have over here, okay, it gets deaminated. So thereby what is it that you are going to have here is ammonia is going to be eliminated. Okay, and you are going to get alpha ketoglutarate acid. Okay, now this alpha ketoglutarate acid acts as an acceptor of ammonia that is going to be eliminated from the amino acid. So this is the actual amino acid, whatever is there in your body. but this alpha ketoglutaric acid is going to receive amino group, so thereby amino acid is going to be converted to alpha amino acid. Okay, so this is what we call it as transamination reaction. Means amino group from one of the amino acid is eliminated to provide a reception system for amino group, abstraction of amino group from amino acids. So here glutamate dehydrogenase enzyme is going to help us in converting glutamine to alpha ketoglutarate, and transaminase enzyme is going to help you in removal of elimination of or transfer of amino group from our amino acids onto alpha ketoglutarate, so that glutamic acid can be synthesized. Okay, so these transamination reactions are reversible, so that's why we call it as ping pong mechanism. So let's say I'll do one small change here. Let's say we have the arrows in this direction. Okay, now we have arrows in this direction. Now what will happen? Now I simply reverse the equation. The amino group from glutamic acid, okay, amino group from glutamic acid can now be transferred onto alpha keto carboxylic acid, so that corresponding amino acids can be synthesized. Okay, can be synthesized, so that glutamic acid will become alpha ketoglutarate, which will receive ammonia, and then glutamic acid is going to be synthesized, resynthesized. Okay, so this is the way how it can work in either way, both for metabolism and anabolism, metabolic reactions as well as synthetic reactions. Okay, the transamination reactions are catalyzed by aminotransferase enzymes. The prosthetic group here we have is pyridoxal phosphate. Pyridoxal phosphate mechanism I will explain in the next slide. So this is pyridoxal phosphate. Here we have aldehyde group is there, that's why you have here the word al. Okay, aldehyde group will be there. Now let's see the mechanism. Mechanism is really straightforward and very simple. The first point is, in the alpha amino acids, regular alpha amino acids, the amino group reacts with aldehyde group over here. Okay, so aldehyde groups reacts with amines to give us aldimine functional groups. Okay, so this group is what we call it as aldimine. Now the aldimine gets rearranged, the double bond shift will happen to obtain enamine, we call it as ketimine. Okay, because if we have R C double bond OH, this type of situation, this is aldimine, and if we have R here, this is ketone, so ketimine. Now this ketimine gets hydrolyzed, so that nitrogen will retain with the pyridoxal phosphate side, and then alpha keto carboxylic acid is released. Now this pyridoxal phosphate amine, okay, so this amine group over here, now this reacts with alpha keto carboxylic acid, that is alpha keto glutamic acid, 2-oxoglutamic acid. Now glutamic acid forms here. What is this imine? It looks like this. Okay, it is also a ketimine. Now that gets rearranged to aldimine, then it is hydrolyzed to give you amino group is retained with the alpha keto carboxylic acid, so that glutamic acid is biosynthesized and pyridoxal phosphate is regenerated. Now this will go back again, and then it reacts with an alpha amino acid, and the entire chain will start. Okay, so friends, this is the way how pyridoxal phosphate helps in achieving deamination reaction of alpha amino acids. Okay, the end product of this entire cycle is pyridoxal phosphate, glutamic acid, and alpha ketocarboxylic acid. So the alpha amino acid is first, it is going to become a alpha ketocarboxylic acid. In the same process, 2-oxoglutaric acid is going to become glutamic acid. The glutamic acid is going to become 2-ketoglutaric acid with the help of glutamate dehydrogenase enzyme. Just now we have seen that. And here NAD plus is going to become NADH and NH4 plus. Okay, amino group that is from amino acids is now first flowing on to glutamic acid. From glutamic acid it is going out as ammonium ion. Here we have two very important enzyme systems. One is AST and ALT. You will hear about these two enzymes in liver function tests. AST means aspartate aminotransferase. ALT means alanine aminotransferase enzyme. So in case of aspartate aminotransferase enzyme, aspartate is converted to oxaloacetate, and in case of the second one, alanine is converted to pyruvate. Okay, so these are the two major biochemical reactions that are happening in liver, usually in quantitatively very high. These enzymes are present in very large quantity in hepatocytes. So that's the reason why if anything happens to liver, in case of liver cirrhosis or any damage happens, these enzymes will leak into general blood circulation. Thereby they will reflect in their enzyme levels, which we usually call them as liver function tests. Okay, so in that way, these are two examples of transaminase type of reactions. Further, these amino acid metabolisms, as I told you in the beginning of the lecture, when you remove amino group from amino acids, they will act as energy sources, or they will become frameworks for participating in other biochemical reactions, but they lose their intrinsic biological activity, okay, bioactivity. So here in case of I am showing you one cycle, that is, okay, pyruvate to oxaloacetate, oxaloacetate to citrate, citrate to alpha ketoglutarate, succinyl CoA, fumarate. This should remind you of a very popular cycle, that is tricarboxylic acid cycle. Okay, why I am showing you all these is like in amino acids, these are the amino acids starting from here: tryptophan, alanine, threonine, glycine, serine, cysteine. Upon metabolism, deamination and degradation ultimately gives us pyruvate enzyme. In fact, pyruvate is the direct product obtained from alanine. Alanine can be biosynthesized from pyruvate, pyruvate can be synthesized from alanine. So here you will see in the next slide the alanine pyruvate cycle, or otherwise pyruvate glucose cycle. Okay, and here glycine is obtained from serine or cysteine, or serine and cysteine can be biosynthesized from glycine. So in this way, these amino acids upon metabolism, they will provide us pyruvate. And aspartate and aspargine, they can provide us oxaloacetate and fumarate. Whereas phenylalanine and tyrosine, they will give us fumarate upon metabolism. Valine, methionine, isoleucine and threonine can provide us succinyl coenzyme A. Histidine, glutamate, glutamine, proline, arginine can provide us alpha ketoglutarate. So this is all about the contributions from amino acids towards tricarboxylic acid cycle. But ultimately, the 3 carbon unit containing pyruvate, 4 carbon unit containing oxaloacetate play major role in gluconeogenesis. Okay, so in this way they help us in both contributing towards tricarboxylic acid cycle, and also in the form of pyruvate and oxaloacetate, they are providing us ingredients for gluconeogenesis. Okay, further, acetyl coenzyme A can be obtained from pyruvate. That acetyl coenzyme A, so many acetyl coenzyme A's, if they are there, they can be converted to ketone bodies. Okay, ketone bodies like acetyl CoA reacts with itself to give us acetoacetyl CoA, that can be hydrolyzed to obtain acetoacetate. Acetyl coenzyme A can also enter into tricarboxylate cycle. So here leucine, phenylalanine and tyrosine can provide us acetoacetate. whereas lysine and tryptophan gives us acetoacetyl-CoA. Leucine, isoleucine and threonine can provide us acetyl coenzyme A. Okay. So as I told you, oxaloacetate can provide us glucose via gluconeogenesis. So here, if you see the entire picture, the chemicals that are on the amino acids that are on the left side, these are all in one or the other way contributing towards obtaining oxaloacetate, the key ingredient for gluconeogenesis. That's the reason why all these amino acids are called as glucogenic amino acids. Whereas on the right hand side, the amino acids whatever we have are providing us the ketone bodies. So these are what we call them as ketogenic. Okay, but some of the amino acids like for example you can see here phenylalanine and tyrosine. You can also find it over here. So that's the reason why these chemicals are dual. Okay, both ketogenic as well as glucogenic. Okay, isoleucine is also there on both the sides, so it is also both glucogenic as well as ketogenic. Okay, but here if you see leucine over here, it is giving us only acetoacetate. So this type of reaction, this type of amino acids are what we call them as only ketogenic. And here if you see aspartame and asparagine are providing us oxaloacetate only. So this type of amino acids are what we call them as glucogenic. Okay, so this is the way how, depending upon their contribution to glucose synthesis or ketone synthesis, ketone body synthesis, we can segregate them into glucogenic amino acids or ketogenic amino acids, or both gluco and ketogenic amino acids. Okay, I hope you understood the concept of glucogenic amino acids and ketogenic amino acids. From the quantitative point of view, we have four reactions. One is direct deamination of glutamate, deamination of aspartate within purine nucleotide cycle. So these are two major pathways, and next to that one is aerobic glycine cleavage system, which looks more like the peroxisome metabolism system that we have seen. It looks like the same. The glycine cleavage system also plays a major role, and then direct deamination of histidine by desaturation also contributes significantly to deamination type of reactions. Okay, and transport of ammonia in the blood, it's a very important topic because ammonia is a weak base, but ammonia is toxic. The problem with ammonia is, if you take different cells, okay, ammonia is a gas, so it can diffuse through the cells. Ammonia is a base, so ammonia becomes ammonium ion, okay, and it alters pH. Ammonia, because if it converts itself to ammonium ion, it is adding to positive charges, okay, so it also alters the ion potential, ion concentration within the cell. So in these ways, ammonia affects the biochemical environment within the cell. There are certain sensitive tissues like brain are there, where oxidation reduction potential and ionic concentration plays a major role in brain cell neural cell functioning. Okay, because there you can see GABA channel, sodium channel, or the glutamate channel. So all these are ion channels. Ion channel working actually activates or deactivates the cell. But here, if ammonium ion is there, it is going to alter the positive charge or negative charge of that system. Further, it is also altering significantly the pH. Okay, as you all knew, enzymes need, or protein structure, 3D structure needs optimal pH value. Okay, so as we have seen in the protein chapter, protein shape depends on the hydrogen bonding, so it gets denatured in extreme pH conditions. Okay, so this is the reason why. Here, ammonia So if you see in our body, about 500 microliter per micromole per liter of ammonia will be there in organs where metabolism happens, like liver. Whereas if you see in blood, peripheral blood, it is only 40 micromole, only less than or equal to 40 micromole only. So what is happening to the 460 micromoles per liter? Okay, so that we have to see. The major transport mechanism of form of ammonia is glutamine. So here I just wanted to give you clarity. Okay, glutamine, glutamic acid and alpha keto glutarate. Okay, now let me show you this. So major transport mechanism of ammonia is glutamine. Approximately 400 to 700 micromole of glutamine will be there per liter. So in glutamine, see here you can see this is the glutamic acid, amino acid, which picks up ammonia by expending one ATP. It gets converted to glutamine. Glutamine is actually the terminal carboxylic acid group that we have over here. It gets converted to amide. Glutamine is a misnomer. Actually it is supposed to be amide, okay, but it is an amino acid, so that's why it is named as glutamine. Otherwise it should be actually we should call it as glutamide. Then that would be more appropriate actually, but let's go ahead. Okay, so this is glutamine, where the carboxylic acid picks up the ammonia group and an amide bond is formed over here. This is glutamic acid, whatever we have seen earlier. So this glutamine synthesis, where exactly it is happening? This is a transport form of ammonia, means glutamine has to be formed in the peripheral tissues, not in liver, not in liver alone. Okay, so this is one of the major pathway for picking up our ammonia scavenging activity. Okay. And this is an endergonic reaction because ATP is consumed. The second form of ammonia transport is alanine. Okay, so this we will discuss in detail in the next slide. In skeletal muscles, most of the skeletal muscles and from peripheral tissues also, the pyruvic acid picks up ammonia and it will become alanine, and then alanine will be sent to liver, where pyruvic acid is biosynthesized. The pyruvic acid will enter either into gluconeogenesis, or the same pyruvic acid will be utilized for biosynthesis of other chemicals also. Okay, so this is the way how. And alanine concentration in blood plasma usually varies between 300 to 400 micromoles per liter. Okay, so both glutamine as well as alanine are two very effective transport mechanisms that we have for shifting ammonia from peripheral tissues to liver, where actually deamination and elimination of nitrogen from our body happens. So in our body, to summarize, I will just give you an outline of how actually the biochemical reactions are coordinated between various tissues. Okay, but here the major tissues are skeletal muscle and liver. Glucose, upon glycolysis, it gets converted to pyruvate. Okay, the pyruvate picks up amino group that is obtained from amino acid metabolism, and then it will become alanine. The alanine will be transported to liver, where alanine is converted to pyruvate, and by using the transamination reaction, this is what we have seen. Okay, alanine is becoming pyruvate. What is the enzyme that works over here? Can you remember that? It's very easy to remember. Okay, ALT, simple. Okay, then glutamine gets deaminated to obtain ammonia, and ammonia will be converted to urea, and urea will be eliminated. Okay, now pyruvate gets converted to oxaloacetate, oxaloacetate will be converted to glucose. Okay, so this is the cycle we have. pyruvate glucose or alanine glucose cycle. Now, various other tissues like in kidney, glutamine gets converted to 2-ketoglutarate and ammonia that is obtained, ammonium ion is eliminated in the urine. The 2-ketoglutarate gets converted to pyruvate, pyruvate will be converted to alanine, alanine will be sent to liver. Then another very important major tissue that we have is GIT, where in the intestinal region, intestinal epithelium, glutamine gets converted to glutamate, glutamate gets converted to 2-ketoglutarate, 2-ketoglutarate to oxaloacetate, oxaloacetate to pyruvate, pyruvate to alanine. So that is the sequence of events that are going to happen. So in this pathway we are getting oxaloacetate. This oxaloacetate will participate in gluconeogenesis and pyruvate participates in energy production, biochemical reactions also. And alanine will be shifted to liver, but glutamine is a major energy nutrient for small intestinal mucosa. The nitrogen atoms of amino are transferred to liver as ammonium. Its concentration in portal blood is very high because in intestinal region, when ammonia is biosynthesized, that will be picked up by using the portal blood supply, which directly takes it to liver. Okay, so that is possible. Then in brain, amino acids are metabolized and glutamine is produced. The glutamine is shifted to liver. So this is the way how various tissues, major tissues in our body, okay, participate in amino acid metabolism, and liver is the ultimate destiny for all the metabolites that we are getting from various tissues. Okay, and this is the way how various amino acid biochemical pathways, metabolic pathways are coordinated, connected in our body. So friends, I hope you understood the relation between various tissues as far as amino acid metabolism is concerned. Now, the fate of ammonium ion in various types of animals, in vertebrates. Okay, so here proteins are converted to amino acids and nucleic acids to nitrogenous bases. From there, amino group is obtained. In fishes like bony fishes and aquatic animals, most of the aquatic animals, ammonia is eliminated as ammonia, okay, majorly. And then in higher animals, amino group is eliminated as urea. Okay, so and in birds, avian section, in birds the ammonia is eliminated from their body majorly as uric acid. Okay, so this is the way how amino group is eliminated. So because we are focusing more on our own biochemistry, so let's see how actually amino group is converted to urea. We have a unique cycle in our body, very important cycle, that is urea cycle. It is also called as ornithine cycle or Krebs-Henselt cycle. So in most of the terrestrial vertebrates, liver cells detoxify ammonium ions obtained from catabolism of amino acids by converting it to urea. Urea is a non-electrolyte and it is highly soluble in water. It diffuses easily across biological membrane. So whatever bad characteristics that we have seen in ammonia became good characteristics over here. Okay, so here urea will not alter pH, will not get ionized, so it will not add to the ionic strength, and it will not create so much of osmotic pressure. Okay, so that's the reason why urea, because it can diffuse throughout your body, so it can be eliminated easily via urine because it is highly soluble in water. So liver cells take up glutamine and ammonium ions from the blood. They can also deaminate glutamate or other amino acids. Okay, that is the capacity of hepatocytes. So let's see the structure of urea. NH2 C double bond O NH2. So one of the amino group is obtained from ammonium ion. The carbonyl group is obtained from bicarbonate anion. and amino group over here is actually derived from aspartate. Okay, so in the urea cycle so many things will happen. Okay, and in one of the step aspartate actually provides this amino group. Now let's see. Urea synthesis is a highly undergonic process where 3 ATPs are utilized. 3 ATPs is so huge, and it also takes up bicarbonate anion, so it is removing base from your system, so this situation actually becomes acidified. So that's why it alters both energy situation as well as pH. Okay, it's a toxic reaction on one side, but it has some additional steps where all these things are compensated. Now let's see in detail. The outline of urea cycle is, it happens in two stages. One is in the mitochondria. So this entire area is mitochondria, where ammonium ion is obtained because of oxidative deamination reaction. So that reacts with bicarbonate with the by spending so much of energy, carbamoyl phosphate, the activated form of ammonia, is synthesized. So this reacts with ornithine to give us citrulline. Citrulline becomes arginosuccinate by reacting with aspartate, and then that will split to give fumarate and arginine. The arginine will split ultimately to give you urea. It is actually appears to be arginine, but arginine is getting the nitrogen from aspartate. So that's the reason why I am using the word aspartate as the source for one of the nitrogen. Okay, so the urea that is obtained is eliminated in urine. Now let's see. The first step is, committed step is synthesis of carbamoyl phosphate from ammonium ion, because here two ATPs are used. One of the ATP is to activate bicarbonate ion, then the second ATP is utilized in the formation of amide bond between ammonium ion, ammonia, and carbonic acid over here. Okay, so thereby it gives us carbamoyl phosphate. If you closely observe carbamoyl phosphate, this part is carboxylic acid, this part is phosphoric acid. So that's the reason why this is a high energy compound. Approximately 45 kilojoules of energy will be there for this compound. Now what happens is, it reacts with ornithine, an amino acid, and this actually attacks the carbamoyl unit, attacks this nitrogen to give us citrulline. Okay, now you can see the C double bond O NH2 is now over here. Okay, C double bond O NH2. Now this is citrulline. The citrulline will then be sent to outside, sent to the cytosol. Okay, so here I should tell you one thing, one very interesting thing. In case of mitochondria, this is mitochondrial matrix, this is cytosol. Okay, mitochondrial matrix to cytosol, we have double layer. Okay, two membranes will be there, inner membrane and outer membrane. They are highly impermeable to material transport. That's why whatever has to happen via transporter mechanism only. So here we have a transporter mechanism, we call it as citrulline ornithine transporter mechanism, where citrulline is transported outside. At the same time, ornithine is imported. So it is like antiport mechanism. Antiport mechanism. Okay. For every 1 mole of citrulline that is going outside, 1 mole of ornithine will come inside. Okay. So this is the way how, in simple terms, this is the way how the transportation happens over here. The citrulline then reacts with aspartate to give us arginosuccinate. So this is an endergonic reaction where 1 ATP unit is consumed. So here you can see 2 ATPs are consumed, here 1 ATP is consumed. So that's why total 3 ATPs are consumed. This arginosuccinate then splits to arginine and fumarate. So here you can see the nitrogen that is coming with aspartate over here is over here, that is now split. Okay, the now aspartate became fumarate, nitrogen remained over here. Then arginine gets hydrolyzed to give us urea. Now here I should tell you one more very interesting thing regarding chemistry. So in case of arginine, we have guanidine unit. Okay, now you put R here, C double bond NH, NH2. So this is it. Okay, then how come urea is coming? Okay, so here the double bond we have over here, it moves from nitrogen to nitrogen. So in one of the resonance stabilized structure, you will have this type of unit. Okay, in one of the resonance stabilized structure you have this unit. Now this is like an amine. Okay, now you can hydrolyze this one so that RNH2 is formed over here, and now this will become urea. This is nothing but urea. So this is the way how ornithine is obtained. Then ornithine will be taken up by the mitochondria via citrulline ornithine transporter system, so that ultimately you have the urea cycle completed. Okay, now urea that is formed is there in the cytosol, that will be eliminated from your body. Okay friends, this is the way how urea cycle happens in the hepatocyte. Okay, half in the mitochondria, half in the cytosol. The fumaric acid that is formed over here will participate in the Krebs cycle. So fumarate will become malate, malate will become oxaloacetate, malate will become oxaloacetate. So this oxaloacetate means what? COOH, CH2, C double bond O, COOH. Okay, so this will be converted to aspartic acid. What is aspartic acid? COOH, CH2, CNH2, COOH. So this is the way how aspartic acid is regenerated. Fumarate will go to malate, malate will become oxaloacetate, like in case of citric acid cycle. Now this oxaloacetate will be shunted into amino acid biosynthesis, so thereby aspartic acid is biosynthesized. Okay, so this is it. Okay friends, so this is the way how uric acid cycle happens in our body. If you look at the significance of individual steps, in the first step, this is actually the step which regulates the rate of urea cycle. Here 2 ATPs are consumed. So carbamoyl phosphate synthase 1 is the regulatory enzyme over here. In our body we have two such enzymes are there. The second enzyme, carbamoyl phosphate synthase 2, okay, so it uses glutamine instead of ammonia and catalyzes the first step in the pyrimidine synthesis, because this you will see in the pyrimidine biosynthesis lecture, okay, in the coming lectures. So this is an actually, because here in carbamoyl phosphate synthase 1, this requires the allosteric activator, the N-acetyl glutamate. Okay, so this is the activator for this enzyme. And as I told you, carbamoyl phosphate is a mixed anhydride, a high energy compound. Now the carbamoyl phosphate carbamoyl unit is transferred to the nitrogen. So here ornithine trans carbamoylase enzyme does this job. But ornithine and citrulline are amino acids, but they are not used in the biosynthesis of proteins. Okay, this you have to remember. Though these two are also amino acids, they will not be there. You cannot see them in proteins. Okay. Now citrulline is shunted into cytosol. Now citrulline reacts with aspartate. Here N and C double bond O are reacting with each other. For your information, this is a uride where C double bond O is not very much active. Why? What is needed over here? This is addition elimination reaction, because in case of aldehydes and ketones, they will react with the primary amines to give us amines. C double bond N R. Okay, because carbonyl carbon is sufficiently positive, so it is possible for nitrogen to add across this one, for which we don't require so much of energy. Whereas here this is a uride. Okay, nitrogen and this nitrogen both are positive, inductive effect will be there. So the nitrogen will not have that much positive charge, will not be there, and nitrogen has to attack this carbonyl carbon. So here it is a high energy situation, so ATP is consumed, and then the cleavage happens over here, thereby. So this is almost like in case of histidase enzyme, the oxidative deamination is happening. So it also looks like the same kind of mechanism where a double bond is generated via elimination of the nitrogen as amine over here. So this arginosuccinase enzyme cleaves this molecule to give us arginine and fumarate. Now fumarate will enter into citric acid cycle. This is what I told you. Ultimately aspartate is regenerated. Okay. Now arginine gets hydrolyzed to give us urea and ornithine. So this is the complete picture of urea cycle, where carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate anion and ammonia are converted to carbamoyl phosphate that reacts with ornithine to give us citrulline. Citrulline gets converted to arginosuccinate, so that from here arginine is coming. And fumarate that is formed will enter into citric acid cycle, so that fumarate becomes malate, then oxaloacetate, then aspartate. So oxaloacetate to aspartate is done by taking amino group from alpha amino acids, so that alpha keto carboxylic acids are biosynthesized. So here arginine ultimately gets dissociated into ornithine and urea. This ornithine enters into the urea cycle again. So friends, I hope you understood the chemistry and mechanisms behind urea cycle. Urea cycle is one very essential biochemical pathway in our body. Minor modifications or problems in urea cycle results in severe conditions. Okay, hepatic failure is one such condition where fatality happen. Regarding urea cycle problems and amino acid metabolism related problems, I made a separate video. You may please see that video for that information. So this is a bit lengthy lecture. So I thank you all for your patient listening and your time. I request you to please share this video with your friends so that they can also get benefited. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get notifications as and when I release a new video on this subject. And I'll see you again with another very interesting lecture soon. Thank you, friends.